Do you like true crime stories? Does investigating unsolved mysteries interest you? Do conspiracy theories intrigue you? Then this is the channel for you. Hi, I'm your true crime psychic medium, Dee Sparta. Life isn't all love, light, and sunshine. Here we dive into the shadows and reveal what is hidden in the darkness. This is True Crime Tarot. Please remember to subscribe to this channel and like the video. Hi, welcome. I'm in my new room. I don't have everything all set up just yet, and things are not where they normally are, so just bear with me. I'm trying to get lighting and sound and everything working well, and please let this be work out. Excuse me. Before I get started, I still got a bit of a cold, and then I have a fan blowing, if you can hear that in the background, but all these bright lights on me, it is hot. It is hot for this old gal, especially if I get a hot flash, I'll be like, ugh. Now, I have had some weird criticisms. I see you folks down below going, oh no, she's got her coffee. How dare she drink coffee? How ridiculous. You try talking non-stop, going over stuff without needing to take a drink. And something nice and warm like my coffee is very helpful. And it also helps if I start having an asthma attack. It keeps it from happening too. So, sorry folks. The coffee and Dee will never part ways. Sorry if it bothers you. Anyway. Yeah. Now, I am going to be covering, you guys keep voting, and the poll kept changing. So I got prepared for one video, and then you guys, it started showing someone else. So I started to get more prepared for a different one, and then I checked this morning, and you guys are on something totally different. I'm just like, so we're going with the original thing that I originally had plotted, folks. I'm sorry. We will get to the Bermuda Triangle. We will get to the Satanic Panic with the three Memphis boys. Now, the case that we're going to talk about today is from that era of during the Satanic Panic, right at its peak. The Gainesville Ripper. Have you ever heard of him? Well, I hadn't. Perhaps if you're from Gainesville, Florida area, you may have heard of the Gainesville Ripper. Kind of like I'm from Los Angeles, California, and was living there when we had the Night Stalker. I'm very familiar with Richard Ramirez, okay? I bolted my windows. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my family, we were locked up because that was scary. So is this story. But there's something a little interesting. Now, his 3-day killing streak traumatized the community of Gainesville. And later, guess what? It went on to be an inspiration for a very, very famous 1990s horror film. Can you guess what it is? Well, you can comment down below and let me know. And later on, you'll see if your guesses are right. Now, the University of Florida lost 4 students, and Santa Fe Community College lost 1 at the hands of Danny Rawling, who, as we now know as the Gainesville Ripper. Now, why did he get the Ripper? Okay, much like Jack the Ripper, these students' bodies were found brutally mutilated and posed. And on a side note here, yes, some people have requested me to do a reading on Jack the Ripper. I would love to do that at some point. I'd find time for it. Okay, now, The year before, in 1989, three people were found in their home in Shreveport, Louisiana, and officials believe now that Danny was connected to them. And this was because of the brutality and how the bodies were left and posed. Now, little bit of info on Danny here. His childhood was awful. Okay, so a lot of these people, when they get to a point, they come from homes where there was like, it was awful. It was an awful childhood. Now, maybe the parents don't think they were all that awful. They thought they were just being good parents, but yeah, you'll see. You see, it was so awful. It was Danny's father even told Danny, "You were unwanted." He did not want Danny, Danny's mom to have Danny. Nope. Danny grew up witnessing his father, who was a Shreveport police officer, abuse and beat his mom. He also would abuse Danny. Now, Danny claims that his childhood trauma had caused him to have alternate personalities as a way to cope with the trauma of his childhood and growing up. Now, one personality, Gemini, he blamed for the murders he committed. Danny was also a fan of the horror genre and claimed that The Exorcist 3 is what inspired him and his killings. You know anything about Exorcist 3? I know it's not like one of the most popular, but it came out in 1990. And they're following these killings, and it's like this demon Gemini is possessing people, and they would kill. It's not necessary to watch Exorcist 3. Now, Exorcist, the original, yeah, that's classic. I will say yes. If you are into horror movies, you will enjoy it. Exorcist 3, but yeah, he was real, if he was saying that he had split personalities while coping growing up, and all of a sudden, he says he's inspired by a movie, Exorcist 3. And I think it came out after the first group of killings. So, yeah, Danny didn't come up with a good defense. We agree on that one, right? Okay. But when we're dealing with the era of the satanic panic, everybody thought the devil's in the lyrics, he's in the movies, he's in games, and he is controlling and ruining our people and the younger generation, and they're going to be doing all these horrible things and all sorts of ritualistic killings and abuse was supposedly happening to children, like thousands. I mean, it was just rampant. Okay, so this time we're dealing with people who were during a time frame where everyone was like scared of this, and Richard Ramirez, he did his killings in the 80s, right in the beginning of Satanic Panic, and of course he really pushed the emphasis that it's Satan. So sorry for the laughing. It's just I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, but we get it. Now, today's reading, we're going to deep dive into the possibility that Gemini was truly to blame or not. I should say his alternate personalities. Now, mental illness does not make a person a bad person, a killer, or corrupt. I need to emphasize this because it's important to not encourage the spread of the stigma that has come on to mental illness. Okay? You can have a mental illness and not kill somebody. All right? Or even have a desire to. You could just be in your happy little bubble. Okay? We'll just go on. Now, so we're going to get into that. And now, if you want to learn more about the Gainesville Ripper, please stick around with me. But if you want to jump ahead to the tarot reading, I got your back. Got the chapter links right down below, and you can just click and jump on ahead. Okay? And here we go. Hey, thank you for sticking around with me. It's been like chaos all of a sudden after I stopped. Like, I had a peaceful, quiet morning. Seriously. But the wife wasn't going into work late because she had a bunch of dental work last night. My father-in-law decided to show up, and he usually does Thursdays, so I thought I was okay, and I forgot. He was like, oh, Thursday's going to be rain, so I'm coming Tuesday. Why am I telling you guys this? Now you know my life a little bit. Get a little glimpse into Dee Sparta's livelihood. I got something itching me, and it is driving me insane. There. The clasp on this was bothering me all of a sudden. I'm like, That's attractive, isn't it? Okay. We'll get into this. I promise. We gotta get serious. This is pretty serious stuff. Sometimes you do just need to lighten things up a bit so you don't get down too low. You know what I'm saying? Get down. Anyway, I want to talk to you about some of the stuff I learned about Danny Rollins as I did a little bit more research on him. Because did you know Ghostface, the killer in the movie Scream, was actually inspired by true events that took place in Gainesville, Florida? I am not talking about the killing, the murder that happened of the young girl in Pocatello, Idaho, by two young men who were inspired by the movie Scream. Because, yeah, that's different. I'm not talking about what was inspired by Scream. I'm talking about what inspired Scream. Okay. So, some say, well, the motivation for the killings are not similar, yet you may decide differently. I want you to let me know what you think. And if you had guessed Scream earlier, yay, here's a little thumbs up for you. Way to go. Now, in March 1994, a poor struggling actor and screenwriter named Kevin Williamson became engrossed in a news program about a drifter who terrorized the town of Gainesville. Oh yeah, I remember this now. Hold on. This doesn't have a class. It's an infinity knot. And it's got pokies, so we're just going to get rid of that. Sorry. I ruined that. I am so sorry, Kevin Williamson. I ruined the big paragraph talking about you and your hard work. You have to know I have much respect because Scream is probably one of my all-time favorite movies next to Rosemary's Baby when it comes to horror, okay? Just gotta put that out there. So, please forgive me. We'll get back into this. But, as I was saying, Kevin became engrossed in a news program about a drifter who terrorized the town of Gainesville, Florida, with the murders of 5 college students over 3 days that took place in August 1990. Now, spooked by the whole thing, he hammered out the screenplay that ended up becoming the successful fright flick that's been celebrated for knowing winks at horror film tropes and breathing new life into the genre. Scream. Doo, doo, doo. Yeah. Man, I went to the theater and saw that movie quite a few times. I loved it. And I've had it on DVD and I own it on streaming. You get the Blu-ray. You get it, okay? I'm a little obsessed. Now, like the OG killers in Scream, the first two, Billy and Stu, Danny also said he was inspired by horror movies. As I mentioned in the beginning intro, Danny had claimed that The Exorcist 3 was the movie that inspired the killings in Gainesville. Now, Exorcist 3, it's like 15 years after Regan gets her exorcism. And there's this lieutenant and cops, they're reminiscing about it and the incident, and then they start hearing about this new killer. But the fingerprints aren't matching crime scenes, even though it's supposed to be the same person, because guess what? And they called him the Gemini killer. Yes, the Gemini killer. And it was actually people being possessed by the same force that was, yeah. You don't need to see the movie. This is one of those movies you could just go, okay, we'll just put a pass on. The First Exorcist? Yes, please. That's a good one. Okay. I got sidetracked again. Oh. Now, I mentioned earlier about Danny's childhood. Well, basically, it's right out of a horror film, folks. This poor guy doesn't have much of a chance. No one intervened to help him when he was struggling, and this guy, he was born in 1954. I can talk. Let me just have some water. All right, coffee. Water. Water's over here. Coffee's over here. Okay. He was born in Shreveport, Louisiana in 1954. His mother was only 19 years old, and her name was Claudia. The father, a decorated Korean War vet, and a police officer named James, whom they think the reason why he was how horrible as he was is he probably suffered from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and maybe perhaps another inherent mental illness. He was never diagnosed, but, you go to war, you're not going to come back just the same. And that's what we need to take care of our vets. We do. Now on to another thing here. Now, you see, a little bit about James. He was temperamental, controlling, and violent. He would fight with Claudia and heap on more verbal abuse on Danny and his younger brother. And as they got older, it became more physical assault attacks. Now, when your father's a police officer and you're trying to say, hey, I'm being abused, or you're a wife of one, who's going to believe you? Who's going to take up your case and help you? People are going to be like, I'm staying away. And unfortunately, it seems like this is what happened to poor Danny. Now, as he got older, he kind of got involved in music and art. In fact, he got a Christmas gift. It was his favorite gift ever. He remembers this as one of the most bestest moments in his teenage years. He was about 15 and he got a guitar. And he began playing this. Now, he also will have said he recalls that it was during these early years at this time he began to develop multiple personalities as a defense from the nightmarish reality around him, with attempts at suicide failing so he would get an escape. So this poor guy, he attempts suicide, he is miserable, and personalities end up being formed, as he says, because it was a way to try and protect him, a way to cope. He did follow in his father's footsteps, and he got into the Air Force. Yeah, he got kicked out. Yeah, he got busted for drug possession, and this happened in 1972. It was after this that he went to go live with his grandfather, and he will say he experienced a pretty things were more stable, and he actually found a lot of hope by going to church. And it stabilized his life, living with his grandfather, the church, and he married a woman named Omether Halko. And they had a daughter. But unfortunately, Danny repeated his father's abuse and drove his wife away. She was smart. Get out of an abusive situation. She was able to get out. So now Danny, he is not in a good place after all this has happened. Already harboring a habit for voyeurism and plagued by disturbing visions, Rowling took a turn for the worse after his divorce. He essayed a woman who resembled his ex-wife, and from there he went on and started doing lots of robberies all throughout the South. And he did end up getting sent to jail. He was incarcerated in Jackson, Georgia in 1979. But he wasn't in there for very long, because in the 1980s he just kept repeating the cycle of all this stuff, all this robbery, armed robbery, forcing himself on women, and he was just in and out of jail, in and out of jail. This is when you go, oh, why does he keep coming in and out, in and out? And yeah. Now, it does seem that Danny's life was set up to fail and repeat the mistakes of his father. He never had help to learn how to cope properly with abuse. As I mentioned earlier, Danny claimed to have developed these multiple personalities to cope with the trauma and abuse because he was terrorized as a child. Yeah, Danny claimed that he had these multiple personalities, and he ended up trying to place the blame on the personality Gemini for the killings. He referred to Gemini as a demon personality that did the killings and the essay of students from August 24th to the 27th in 1990. Now, due to the horrific killings, he was, as I mentioned before, compared to Jack the Ripper. And that's how the name evolved to the Gainesville Ripper. Now, we learn later on that this wasn't the first time Danny had killed. There was an unsolved case of 3 people in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is where he was born and raised. 3 people had been brutally murdered. Officials began to connect these murders with the ones in Gainesville because there were some similarities. And I want to warn you all, be careful. I am going to try and not get into too much detail about what was done and the similarities. I suggest I'll put my resources down below and you can look at it yourself, research it yourself. No photos. No, I'm not sharing anything like that. See, 1989 was a year when everything just became exacerbated. He lost his job, and he traveled back to Shreveport in November of 89. No, he went there and then lost his job working at a restaurant there. That's it. He probably lost his job, went there, and then lost his job again. It's been bad. It's been bad, okay? Now, the same night that he was fired from the restaurant, he broke into a home so that he could murder 24-year-old Julie Grissom, her 8-year-old nephew Sean, and her 45-year-old father Tom. Now, much like the killings in Gainesville, Julie was found with bite marks and her body arranged in a very provocative way on the bed. Then, in May of 19... Now, nobody knew it was Danny. When these killings took place, they didn't know who it could have been. No idea. But we now know who it was. But so we go through November, and then May of 1990, Danny ends up getting into a very violent confrontation with his dad. This was the last hurrah, basically. Well, I wouldn't say hurrah. It was the final argument with his father. And by final, I mean he pulled out his gun and shot James in the stomach and head. Miraculously, his father survived, but he did lose use of an eye and an ear. Now, this is when Danny just hightailed it out and ended up in Gainesville, Florida. Sorry. Now, he set up, so this is in summer of 1990, he sets up a campsite in a wooded area behind the University of Florida. And this was just before the fall semester began. You see, on August 24th, he slipped into the home of University of Florida freshmen Christina Powell and Sonia Larson. And he brutally stabbed them, essayed both of them, and left them there. And they did not survive, folks. Then the following day, he went over to Santa Fe Community College. Now, Krista Hoyt was his next victim there. And what he did here was even worse. He propped her head up on a shelf to face her body that was propped up also on the bedpost. It's just disgusting. Just why? Why? On August 27th, he struck again at the home of two 23-year-old University of Florida students. Now, Manuel Tabata and Tracy Pauls. Now, Manuel, he was a former high school football player. And Tracy felt pretty safe, even with what was happening, because she had him with her. Unfortunately, even though there's evidence that Manuel had put up a fight, they both lost. And Danny did it, just mutilated. He was not able to mutilate. I think the poor guy was probably worn out. Poor guy, the asshole. Oh, watch my language. Danny, he just didn't get to the mutilation part. Yay. Now, panic was happening all over Gainesville community, and trying to calm it, police zeroed in on a University of Florida student who had lived in the same building as the first two women who were victims. Now, this is where we have issues with why, you put your blinders on, you focus on something that you shouldn't. You see, they were like, well, he was having erratic behavior, and he'd actually been arrested once for hitting his grandma. Now, that dude, that is a no-no. But what they discovered is this student was battling an acute manic depression. And there was zero evidence connecting him to the murders. But they were like, oh, he acts weird. And he's, been to jail for hurting someone, he probably did it. But no, there was nothing connected to him. And so this task force that was trying to find the killer was all to start all over again. Yeah, it took 2 years before they caught Danny. And he was eventually charged with the murders in Gainesville. How did they catch him and even connect these murders? Well, let me tell you. You see, the Louisiana police alerted Florida, Gainesville, Florida, detectives, authorities there that, hey, we have a triple unsolved murder over here in Shreveport on November 4th of 1989. And our notes here looking similar to yours. And we're wondering, if there's a possibility. Now, Don Maines, an investigator on the case with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, traveled to Shreveport to look into it because he was like, well, you know what? There are similarities here. And I'm not going to get into the details of the similarities. One thing he used was vinegar to clean the bodies. He was hoping, they couldn't find him in any way by using vinegar. It's one of the things he did. Yeah. But because of something like that and a couple of other things, it was like, oh. They did find some blood from the killer there that matched, was also, well, they didn't do DNA testing like that. It was type B blood, and it was type B over here, both in Shreveport and Gainesville. So they're like, well, wait a minute, that could definitely connect these. Now, shortly after Maine's trip to Shreveport, a Shreveport resident, Cindy Jurakic, I am sorry I butchered that name. I couldn't even figure out how to find anybody who knew how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. But she called Crime Stoppers, and she reported that Danny Rawlings was possibly connected to the murder in both cities. You see, 3 months earlier, in August of 1990, Cindy had heard a news report about the string of murders happening in the Florida Panhandle. And she was like, well, that sounds like Danny, whom she had met at a church in Louisiana. And she's like, he could be the Shreveport killings and over here. You see, Rawlings had said some deeply disturbing statements to Cindy and Cindy's husband, Stephen Dobin. He'd come over every night for a while, and then one night, Stephen came in and he goes, you got to go. And Cindy's explaining this. And because Stephen was like, I have a problem with you, being here every night. And Rawlings says, well, I have a problem with you. And of course, Cindy's like, what kind of problem? And Stephen was like, he likes to stick knives into people. Now, Cindy was like, what? Well, whatever, that's weird. She didn't want to believe that Danny could do something like that he could be responsible for these killings. But then Danny also told her, one day I'm going to leave this town and I'm going to go where the girls are beautiful and I could just lay in the sun and watch beautiful women all day. And so she was like, Danny's a little off. He is a little weird, isn't he? And this, here's her then husband at the time was all, You like to stick knives in people. I know you. I know what's going on. And that just, then you start thinking, okay, I think there's a connection. And I should speak up. And she did. She couldn't rest until she actually made the call and said something. So she did it. And guess what? Investigators did respond to the tip. And they began looking into Rawling very quickly, and he was arrested on September 7th of 1990. He was already in jail because he had already been arrested for a supermarket robbery. Well, at least he was in jail so he couldn't continue his spree. That, whether it was, what, but the guy just he loved to rob, and obviously he's not very good at it because he was always getting caught, and you shouldn't be good at it. No. You shouldn't steal. But the robbery happened exactly 10 days after the last bodies were found. Manny and Paul and his girlfriend. Now, he was being held about 40 miles away in this jail in Marion County. And yeah, they were able to get in touch, and they realized that Rawling had multiple convictions for armed robbery. And they realized that he could also did a bank robbery on the day that Krista Hoyt's body was found. And they went back to the evidence locker where there was a gun, a screwdriver, a bag of money, and a cassette player that had been stored. Now this, folks, if you find a cassette, if this guy had, find his cassette and it's sitting there locked in evidence, would you not want to listen to it to see if it'd give you anything? Well, apparently that didn't happen. Not until, after someone said, hey, it's Rawling. They put in the cassette, and oh my goodness. Actually, there were several tapes. The first cassette, basically it was like a diary where he was talking about what he had done. Yeah, They were his audio diaries, and he was alluding to all the crimes and how it happened, and they were like, oh, and it's Danny's voice. Okay. And the tools matched the marks that were left on the Gainesville murders. And they ended up going over and finding this small one-man camp where he was living by the apartment complexes where the students he went after. Now, they just, listened to all the evidence and were able to realize, hey, we know who it is. He's already in jail. Boom. Now, he was already facing, I think, multiple life sentences for several armed robberies. So then he formally got charged with the murders of the 5 Gainesville students in June of 1992. Now, I don't understand this. How can you fall in love with a prisoner who's a serial killer? How is that possible? But I don't understand how some of these women can just fall for these convicts in jail, and I'm sure guys fall for women also in jail, and knowing that they have essayed and killed, and I was just like, oh hell no, honey, nah, I could not. But Danny had began corresponding with a journalist named Sandra London, and she soon became his fiance, and they put together a book, The Making of a Serial Killer. Now, he had pleaded not guilty, but, he'd been talking to his fellow inmate, Bobby Lewis, confessing to the murder. So, when that got out, yeah, in February 1994, he changes his plea. He's like, yeah, I'm guilty. Yeah, and he tried to say that he was guilty, but tried to explain that it's not his fault. It's Gemini who drove him to do these sadistic acts. The jurors had to listen to Danny's mother recount the abuse that Danny went through at the hands of his father, and listen to what a psychiatrist had to say. And the psychiatrist did say Danny described the alternate personality as Gemini. And then 2 other psychiatrists also testified that a severe personality disorder was in play, but stated, to their belief, Rawling understood the magnitude of his crimes. The jury unanimously found Rawling guilty of first-degree murder on all 5 counts in late March, a month later and a month later he was sentenced to death. His appeals exhausted. Rawling faced execution in the Florida State Prison on October 25th, 2006. In his final moments, he went and telling people, about 47 people were crammed in his witness rooms. He started singing some of his songs and reading from religious hymns. And, I think he did None Greater Than Thee, O Lord, None Greater Than Thee. His microphone was then cut off, and that's how his life ended. And it is just as crazy as some horror movie. I think, personally, when it comes to his saying Gemini and alternate personality, I think he saw the movie Exorcist 3. And after the fact, when he was caught, he's like, Gemini took over, and thought he'd use that as an excuse. That's my personal opinion, but I don't know. So we're going to get into a tarot reading, find out, maybe there were more. We don't know. I mean, maybe he really did have these alternate personalities and this happened, because there are people who disassociate and have these other personalities, and it's a struggle for them to live and to get people to understand them. So I would never put anyone down. Yeah. So let's get into the tarot reading. This is just it's such a sensitive subject, because we're dealing with mental illness, and I don't ever want to add to the stigma. I don't ever want to put people down. I suffer with PTSD, anxiety. It's not easy. And, I get help. I've gotten help. I take my medication. I do the best I can to be a good person and to be healthy. And it's not always easy. Sometimes you just crumble and fall apart. But that's okay. Just pick yourself back up together again. Don't ever be too hard on yourself. That's one of the things I have to teach myself by myself. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You're not expected to be perfect. There is no way you could be perfect. So it's okay that I screwed up or I did something wrong or this went wrong. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And I think more and more people need to realize and hear that, hey, it's okay. Okay, let's move on in to this tarot reading. Okay. I wasn't sure which deck. I was going to try some other deck cards, but you know, folks, got this set right here. You know, the Haunted Mansion deck. We're going to dive in, use these cards here. Right now I'm just trying to get into a zone. Okay. Now please remember that these readings are all alleged. And we do this for entertainment purposes only. Yes, I do have to state that. So, okay, the first card. Let's see here. Okay. I'm going to put it up there. Have a little bit different setup, so I want to make sure we can see everything. Okay. So. Okay. The Six of Pentacles is reversed in this situation. And then we have the Three of Wands also reversed. This is... Two of Cups. What I'm seeing... Danny could only relate to violence. His dad would say, you don't be lazy. Stop sitting around. You need to get up and actually get out there and, help your mom and do this and do that. Be a man. And I am seeing the split. Disassociating so he could survive. The cruelty is what led him to killing. I have a feeling there is at least one more instance. Yeah. One more instance in which Danny... There's another cold case out there. I'm hearing Texas. He's connected. Case in Texas. Yeah, and ooh, his divorce. He felt like he lost control. Lost control of everything. And he wanted other people to hurt. He wanted those whom he felt wronged him in any way. It wasn't even if there was any real wrong done. In his eyes, he had been wronged in many ways. He wanted to just torment. He was a very tormented person, and he was hearing voices. Yeah, I got, look at all these aces. Okay, the One of Cups upside down. There's dreams being crushed. Yeah. Oh. And we have death. As I said, there is a cold case, I think Texas, where he did kill, and that was the beginning. The beginning of his of that was when he started. Gemini. It was not known to him as Gemini, this personality. It wouldn't give a name. I get a sense that he was very indifferent to other people. It didn't matter to him when someone was killed. It just like, you know. Now we have the Magician. And the Magician, he often he's a little trickster sometimes. And we got him reversed. And it's over all this torment and a bad and his split. He was people were misunderstanding who they would see Danny as one way, and then they'd see this other side, and they weren't catching. It wasn't clicking. So yeah, he was disassociating, and it confused people. And I think that's why he was not connected to Shreveport or any other previous possibilities. He wanted to overpower. He really had a hatred for women. He blamed his mom. Her fault. She put up with Dad. She stayed there. Didn't blame. Yeah. It's like this twisted. You know, his father he hated. But I was trapped there because of you, Mom. And that's where he started, where he had such, he wanted to degrade women. And his ex, she got out, but she knew what he could do. Yeah, here's the moon reversed. He when he was, you know, he needed medication to help. He needed a therapist because his mind would just shatter. It was like, and he would be overwhelmed. And that's when he would do cruel things. That's when he would get into fights and imitate his father. There it is. And as soon as I say imitate his father, there's the father figure, the Emperor reversed, who is just a very chaotic, cruel person. And that's what he felt like he did. There was like a side of him that was his dad that he wanted to hide away. Yeah, here's the 11. And here we're dealing with justice. And he wanted justice for himself. Him hurting others because he had been hurt. He felt balanced things. Yeah. So let's see here. I want to pull out the Lunderman deck because I want to see, get a clarification on something here. Huh. Okay, and okay. Oh. Well, that's the sarcophagus. That's a coffin, folks. That's a bummer. I didn't want to see that come up. But I had asked, was there more? Were there more? And boom. That's what I get. The question in my head, they're like, more what? That? Yes. Trapped in a cage. Okay, here's 20. Garden. Death. Garden. Outdoors. Being humiliated in front of others. Even though he perceived it as humiliation. He thought, okay, when you were looking at this, the 32, the moon year, it's how people are perceiving. He thought people perceived him as like an idiot, dumb. He can't do anything. He's worthless. And I think that's what triggered what happened, which I think happened in Texas. I could be totally wrong. All right, yeah. Scattered, yeah. This just is like saying there's a maze, you connect the dots and you're going to find everything because everything has been moved all over the place. That's right. Nothing was being connected. Why all the chaos and why he was able to be sly as a fox and not get caught. It was kind of a work event. I'm seeing. People laughing, and they thought they were laughing with him, but no, he didn't see it as that way at all. He saw everybody as very two-faced. And he wasn't understanding that they weren't really mocking him or putting him down, but he took an affront to it. And that's how he killed somebody. Yeah. I think that would have been the first. And then when he lost his job again with the 3 people, he went after the 3 people in that house and killed them. It's like it's a pattern with him. It's a pattern. That is just, that's a bummer, folks. It's awful. I feel really just the poor victims. When I think I see Danny as this little boy, and that's where I get he was let down and wasn't protected, and he didn't get the help and care he needed. And from that, he just shattered and splintered and would put up different facades, different personalities to protect himself because he felt he needed a barrier. And the only way he knew how to cope further was to act out in violence and being demeaning to people. Yet at other times he could turn around and he was probably such a sweet. That's why Cindy had a hard time connecting, because the Danny she was seeing was not the same Danny who was coming out. You know, with the mask that you saw in the Leonard, it was this splitness. Not only was he not seeing correctly what was happening in that situation, people were not seeing him correctly because he had a mask on all the time. It was a different personality to shield him. So he was very vile and disgusting. And I'm not one for capital punishment, but in a case like this where, yeah, he not denying what he did, I don't feel so bad. And maybe it's gonna give him another chance, you know, if we do get reincarnated, you know, he comes back and has another chance at life. I would hope something. We don't always know how people are suffering or what's going on the inside, because we don't really know all of everything, you know, what people, you could have an idea, like you guys have an idea of some of the things I've been through, but you don't know, because I don't open up everything, and I'm not, you know. Now my wife, on the other hand, you know, we've been together forever. I just feel comfortable, you know, and she still is learning more about me, and I'm learning more about myself. And it's neat that, you know, because healing has been coming more and more as I have been able to deal with things better. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say, I think the psychiatrists were right when they said he knew, even though there was an alternate personality, he knew what he did was wrong. And how vile it is. He knew. And that's why he could be held accountable for what he done. So yeah, that you know, this is a kind of a shorter video, folks. Well, at least the reading part is, because I think we kind of nailed what we wanted to hear. But yeah, I think Texas, I don't know, maybe next year something will come out. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm really curious. I really am. All right. I love you guys. Thank you for sticking around. I have a whole bunch of new subs. Hey! Hi! I see you. I do. I see you. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching my channel, sharing my videos, man. I'm going to be hitting 2,000 pretty soon. I have a feeling, and I hope. Yes, I am going to go live, and I will give those 5 free readings for people. When I believe I'm going to manifest this one here, folks. I love you guys. I really do. Remember, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. I love you. Bye. Oh yeah, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. Yeah, you know, I didn't get much sleep last night. I've been up since 4 in the morning, and it's like going on 11 in the morning, and I fell asleep around 1. So yeah, I'm deprived of sleep. I think I'm going to try and take a nap. I think that sounds pretty good. You know, you guys comment down below. Let me know what else you want me to do a reading on, what you're interested in, and what you think of this case and the possibility. Man, you know, I could be way out there on left field and, you know, confuse things. Who knows? I'm not ever going to say that my readings are all accurate and everything I say is how it is. No. Okay. And I've had some people, I got to go on to this. Why do you hate watch me? Seriously, some people, I don't get it. You watch the video and you just start commenting all these things. Calling me a scam artist, a liar, and how vile I am, what I'm doing. Folks, I'm here to help. This isn't a scam. When I grew up in the church, I was always said, you have the gift of divination and prophecy, and I was taken seriously. And it was respected. But outside of the church, if I use my gifts, I'm a con artist. Folks, it doesn't work that way, okay? It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry to say. I do these readings because I'm interested in how to help people. I am fascinated and interested in true crime. And, I feel like if you can learn from the mistakes of the past and what others have done, maybe we can grow and develop and be better people and learn how look at someone who was a serial killer, look at their life and see what can be done to do better. So when there's another person or child, we know how to handle things. We don't just throw somebody into jail or into the system or tell them, oh, it's all in your head. Yeah, it is in my head. I got a massive chemical imbalance up in there. Can we get it fixed? So, yeah, we learn from history. We're supposed to learn from history. We repeat history a lot, okay? I was like, come on, can we learn a little? But no, if we can learn more and more about what motivates and what can make a person become vile and corrupt. We want to bring good people into the world. As my wife and I are raising our kids, and it's like, I want to raise them and that they're good people, that they bring good stuff to others and can be encouragers and just bring something good into this world. That's what I really hope and pray. And I just when it comes, I worked so long. Was in ministry with kids, and I did a lot of school about kids and psychology, and just our children are precious, and when their lives are broken, it's really hard to get your shit together. And if you don't get the support you need, we see things like Danny Rawlings, Jeffrey Dahmer. You see how it can affect people. Wow, I just went on this whole tirade. If you actually are still here, hello, hi, thank you. Let me know. Comment down below. I don't know. Give me a black heart emoji. How's that? That'll work. Because I will remember to come back to this video and look at that. And I might pick one of you all for a free reading. We'll see. Shh. Don't say, hey, pick me. No, just put the heart in there, folks. Just put the heart in there. Just, talk about something that you liked about the video and stick in the heart. Be sly. Anyway, I'll end now. I need sleep. I love you guys. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. See you next time. Bye.